right, ladies and gentlemen, make yourself. Candidates are going to make their way up here in a few minutes, and so we'll get started here in a few. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for coming here this evening. We start at 6:30, that means 6:30. So thank you very much for the people who stood in line and showed up this evening. So what we're going to do now is, this is like a structured debate format. So we're going to go ahead and have each candidate draw a number. But each candidate has the same amount of speaking time, and each candidate will speak in a different order, but revolving order. So let's do the draw. Okay, we're going to go ahead and start with the prayer first, since we are in the church. So, Mr. Eric.
First, before I pray, I just want to thank you all for coming to church. It's taken a lot of work to get you all here. And I'd like to thank you as your neighbor, and we look at you guys as our neighbor, and we're delighted here at Faith Community Church to have you all as our neighbor. Now, would you pray with me, please? Father God, we thank you for this day, as every day is a gift from you. We thank you for the people assembled here, and we ask your blessings for each and every one of them. We ask your blessings for this meeting and everything that can be accomplished tonight. We know you wish us to be good stewards of your creation. We ask your blessing on our guests that wish to represent us in our county government. We ask for them to have special wisdom and discernment as they hear your people speak tonight. And we ask all these things in your Son's holy name. Amen.
Thank you very much, sir. Now we're going to do the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
thank you very much. We're going to go ahead and get this show on the road. So, my name is Andy Strickland. I'm a member of the Save the Tide Steering Committee. I'd like to introduce briefly the other members of Save the Tides. I'd like to introduce our president, Ed Methbessel. Say hello, Ed. Was the treasurer, Ron Ronsack. Any checks you guys would like to write, Ron is right there, or you can send it to his house. Is that correct, Ron? 6004 Oakhurst Drive?
Yes, sir.
6004 Oakhurst Drive, 7033772. I know in your handout we have a different address. That was our previous treasurer, but now it's 6004 Oakhurst Drive. So thank you. All right, next, Mr. Tom Beckwith. Raise your hand, Tom. Right here. And a newcomer, Mr. Dan Hott. Where are you at, Dan? And communications. You all received those emails from Mr. Stevens. Ron, raise your hand. Ron is collecting your data. He will not share it with anybody other than Save the Tides. So name, address, phone number, email address, the best way we can contact you. And if you can fill that out, that would be great. All right, so I already talked about briefly the discussion questions format. I already drew the numbers. Next is, I'd like to introduce briefly the candidates before we start the lead in question. So, Kathleen drew number 1, and so I'd like to introduce Kathleen. If there's something I'm missing or something that's not incorrect, please jump in during your opening statement. But Kathleen Peters moved to Pinellas County in 1985. She received her bachelor's degree from Ahern College, majoring in human development. She currently holds the position of state representative for Florida House Representatives District 69. And that reminds me, somebody in this room is running for District 69, Kathleen's old job. Who is that? Ray Blackledge. Everybody say hello to Ray. Thank you, Ray, for being here. And each of the candidates has their campaign materials on the table over there. All right, so Kathleen was formerly VP of Public Affairs at the Clearwater Regional Chamber of Commerce. On the Florida Legislature, she serves on the Commerce Committee, Ways and Means, Government Operations, Technology Appropriations Subcommittee, Chair of the Energy and Utilities Committees. And so I just want to start. I mean, each one of these candidates are well qualified. We can spend half the evening talking about their resumes. So I just wanted to give a brief opening statement on each one. And they're more than welcome to introduce themselves when it's their turn to speak. Family. Family is important. Kathleen has how many children and grandchildren?
4 sons and 4 grandsons.
4 sons and 4 grandsons.
Oh, wow.
Barb Haselden. I'm starting at the other end, that's okay. Barb has resided in St. Petersburg for over 30 years. Specifically District 6 for 25, and she's now seeking this current district. She founded her Florida corporation, Hometown Insurers, in 1989. Everybody is familiar with Barb because in 2013 she created No Tax for Tracks, a registered county political committee to educate Pinellas County taxpayers on light rail issues. So she was successful in that campaign, so much so that 62% of the electorate voted against that in the referendum. So once again, large resume. Family life, she's a businesswoman and mother and involved grandmother of 3. So thank you very much for being here tonight, Barb. Larry Ahern. I don't know, you want to talk about how you grew up in Detroit and shoveled snow? Larry's desire to serve the community compelled him to enter politics for the first time in 2010. And he currently is in the House, Florida House of Representatives. He was elected in November 2010, re-elected in 2012, 14, 16. As a conservative, he brought common sense, business approach to serving constituents and finding solutions. He sponsored many bills to lower taxes, reduce regulations, provide more school choice, support first responders and veterans, and protect seniors and unborn children. The federal government's failure to act on flood insurance, which is important in this neighborhood, created a crisis for local homeowners. Larry passed legislation creating a private Florida-based marketplace and offered lower rates. So there are many other things, accomplishments that Larry has done through the years. Family, his wife.
3 daughters and 1 granddaughter.
Very good. Thank you very much for being here. And a newcomer, Miss Amy Kedron. She also escaped the snow from the north, Buffalo, New York. When American jobs were sent overseas, Amy saw that it destroyed not only wages but communities. As a Catholic student, there were only 9 kids in her 4th grade class because the parents could no longer afford tuition. As an adult, she's has a doctorate degree as well as a law degree, and she came up with a company that handles. Amy came up with solutions that directly helped people. She became the founding CEO of Social Enterprise that encouraged people to support local businesses and an economy that works for everyone. Amy is an educated. She educates business owners about cost savings things that they could do to help the environment and create more wealth for the local community. So, once again, all these candidates here, thank you very much for being here. And if there's anything that I messed up or mixed up, please correct me during your opening statements. So, we drew numbers. Kathleen Peters was number 1, Larry was number 2, Amy was number 3, and Barb was number 4. Coincidental. All right, so before we begin with the first question and get this show on the road, I'm going to go ahead and give a lead in here. I'm going to get a drink of water. Just kidding. All right, the issue of the tides is relevant because it reflects the greater issue at hand. Land use and the comprehensive plan and the priorities and values of this community, of this county as a whole. The Tides was a golf course since 1973. It was rezoned in 1985 to agricultural with recreational environmental land use designation. In 2013, Taylor Morrison submitted a zoning application to build 170 homes, townhomes on this property. 2014, a combination of public outrage and the Pinellas County LPA, local planning agency's recommendation, they recommended against rezoning and gave a lengthy 78-page justification and reason why. That's right. Because of some folks on the LPA, the corporation withdrew its application. Taylor Morrison withdrew its application. Well, guess what? Only 2 years later, 2016, a local land developer by the name of Jeffrey Hills, we have his contact information on your handout. So if anybody would like to contact him or his office, you have his phone number and you have his email address right there. So Mr. Hills purchased a golf course despite not having any clue how to run a golf course and having any history in his portfolio of having a golf course. So, a few months later, properties, after his purchase in 2016, a few months later, properties along the golf course received an anonymous letter. An anonymous letter popped up in everybody's mailbox alleging that Mr. Hill was going to start to develop the golf course in spring of 2017. Well, unfortunately, we didn't take it as serious as we should have, because summer of 2018, employees of the golf course and its loyalty members, so you have employees that were there for God knows how long, You had 2 generations of people that have been playing golf there. This gentleman gave them and extended them a common courtesy of a 2 weeks' notice. Guess what? The golf course is closing. You're going to have to play somewhere else.
Yes.
Yeah, and he gave some dubious, questionable reason why that we'll probably discuss as this evening goes on. So, we believe that a change in land use, an application is impending, and we would like to hear our future candidates, not what they talk about to us in private, but what they say in public matters. Their position on the first question. I'd like to go ahead and lead into that, please. And, before we begin, I'm sorry, I forgot opening statements. Opening statements. Kathleen, you're first.
Hi, it's great to be here. I'm Kathleen Peters.
How's that better? Yeah. Okay, great. So I'm Kathleen Peters. I represent District 69 for the House of Representatives, and I have for 6 years. And that includes most of this community here, and it's been really a privilege to serve you. I've gone and seen the golf course, and of course met with some of your neighbors, and they've given me all kind of information. And so what I'm really looking forward to is hearing more about what you all have to say. I was the mayor of a city where we didn't have a city manager, so I was the city administrator, and I get it. I understand how city works and how local government works. You guys have a long history here. I think the voice of the people has been very loud and very clear about what it is you want. And I think it's really important that we all sit down and we really listen to everything that you have to say and what you want. I've enjoyed knocking on your doors and talking to some of you. And it's been interesting. I'd say about 99.9% every one of you have said the exact same thing. Thank you.
Good evening, and thank you all for being here. It's so important that you gather like this in force to be a voice for your community, because government doesn't always listen. And in fact, most of the time they're preoccupied with a lot of the things that they think are important, but aren't as important to you, the citizens. And that's what we've lost, that connection to our government through its elected officials so many times. And I think that's my strongest suit, is I've always tried to be there and be on the forefront and stay in contact with the people. And while I played the tides, I'm a golfer, and first came upon the situation when someone was out there asking for us to sign a petition to save the golf course at one of the holes. And so I've watched it come up and go down and then come up again. And I think this is an important moment, and that all of us together, I think working together, can make sure that your voice gets heard at the county commission level. I know it will be heard by me, and I know when we get to answer the question of why this is so important, why this space is so important to this community. So I look forward to the questions and the comments as we go forward. Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So my name is Dr. Amy Kedron, and I guess I want to start by saying this. I know a lot of you are very, very concerned about your neighborhoods, and you're concerned about the green space that you love. But a wise man once said that it is only when it is the most dark that you can see the stars. And I think we have almost 400 stars in this room. So give yourselves a round of applause. I have to say, I'm actually really excited about this issue because this is a community economic development issue, and that is my area of expertise. As the moderator said, I was born in what soon became the third poorest city in the country, and I watched people struggle when good jobs went away, and I became the first person in my family to go to college, and I ended up with a law degree and a PhD focusing on what are the underlying causes of economic, social, and political stressors, and then what do we do to fix it? And that's what community economic development asks. And I'm very excited to be of use to communities, and I love having the opportunity to come in and work with communities and help people resolve challenges like this. And you're standing up for your fundamental rights as Americans in what you're doing, and I really applaud you. I've been to the Save the Tides meetings. I've spoken to people in the community, and what's wonderful is if you look around the room, I'm sure we're from all sorts of different political stripes, but you all have one thing in common, and that's your love for your community and your love for your green space. In a time when we can be very divided, it's important for us to focus on what brings us together. So I'm glad that we're all here tonight.
Good evening. I am so thrilled to be here tonight and to see this big crowd, because really it harkens back to the days that we did No Tax for Tracks and the excitement that was generated through the outpouring of the citizens. During No Tax for Tracks, I want to just remind you, that was a countywide issue. And so we were traveling, I was traveling from one end of the county, from one side of the county to the other for 4 years, fighting that as a citizen and bringing the information forward. So this is a great step tonight. To see this kind of a turnout is so inspiring, because that's what it's going to take. It's going to take this and more. And you've done it before, I don't have to tell you, but you can do it again. And there's no question that here in Pinellas County, we have so little green space to protect. And there are so many things going on that I want to share with you tonight at the county level that I think compromise their ability to be real objective about this, because of some of the goals that our county commission have set in our county administration, even since the last time you had this tub. So I'm hoping to be able to share some of that with you, and I'm hoping to be able to share some solutions that may be something that your legal team can look into. So with that, I look forward to a great night. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for those statements. So let's go ahead and jump into the first question, shall we? First question is, one of the most important aspects of a county commissioner's job involves making land use decisions. What guides you in making those decisions, or what will guide you in making those decisions?
Being in local government, really truly, and I've been a city commissioner, I've been a mayor, been a state representative, and the one thing that guides me, and I've got a track record to demonstrate that, what guides me is what the people want. And not to be a rubber stamper to whether it be someone in a higher power and leadership, or if it's going to be a special interest group. There have been numerous articles about how I disagreed with our Speaker of the House because his agenda was not what I felt in the best interest of the citizens. And so to me, if you are an elected official, you truly are a public servant. And that job and that role is to serve the people. And it's not always easy, because people don't always agree. It's not easy, it's hard. And some of those decisions that we have to make are really, really difficult. But I have always led with what the people have wanted. And that's kind of been my history through being a mayor and being a legislator. I take on tough issues. Because I can tell you, there's nobody up there in the legislature that's talking about mental health and addiction. Nobody wants to talk about it. But I'm willing, and I made change. I mean, I've completely reformed the policies at the state level. So it takes somebody with gumption, who's willing to talk about the not popular things, who's willing to be concerned about what the people are concerned about, and truly be a public servant. And that's really has been my history. And so when you say what is the most important thing, whether it's land use, whether it's water policy, whether it's traffic policy, the truth of the matter is you're representing the people that have elected you in. You're serving for the people, and if you don't represent the people, then you don't belong there. And that's always been my motto and how I've run my policies throughout the years in which I've been a public servant. And it's really been a privilege, and I'll tell you it's not easy. But as long as you stay with the people, you'll never go wrong. And that's just what I've done, and it doesn't matter what I took on, if it's mental health, if it's addiction, if it's the utilities when they were doing wrong. I've always stuck with what the people wanted, and it has always served me well, and I would always continue that.
And the question was about land uses, I think.
Yes, sir.
Land use and public government. I think it's important, an important distinction to understand what fuels government, and Amy talked about it. Actually, economic development is what pays government. That's how it pays the bills. It continues to grow, and as it continues to grow, it needs money. Unless there's a downturn in the economy, it's always searching for a way to get more money. And usually that's coming through this economic development. And it might be in the guise of jobs or whatever it is that's happening. And unfortunately, it's been to our own demise in a certain sense. And I'll tell you why. Because it means for all the people in this room that moved here for reasons and live in this beautiful neighborhood and all the things that you were sort of guaranteed or you thought were guaranteed, that when a space like this all of a sudden comes up and the government looks at it as another revenue source, as they would typically do, they do so at your expense. And that's not right. That's what I've seen in state government, and I've seen it in local government, and I've seen it in county government, especially in county government. That's why I'm running, to be quite honest, to bring that accountability back to the people so that you have a say in how things are run. We have to put a stop to all the economic development. I mean, and then they complain about transportation and all the other things that go along with it. This all adds to it, to the sewage problem, to the pollution of the bay, all these things, all these so-called great economic development plans. So we just have to rein in a little bit of government, maybe check our spending a little bit. I'll be honest, I really don't think government has a funding problem. I believe it's really a spending problem. Thank you.
I'm glad that Larry brought up economic development, but there's a big difference between economic development and community economic development. That is my area of expertise. Community economic development is different from economic development because of community. The end goal of economic development, and this gets to a key issue that's at stake here tonight. The end goal of economic development is what?
Greed.
Usually, a handful of guys, wealthy guys, get a little wealthier.
Yeah.
What is the end goal of community economic development? Uplifting the community.
Yeah.
Yes. So you can do economic development projects for a different end, improving the community. And that's what makes this issue different, and that's what I've been dedicated to my entire life. So getting back to the question, how do you make those decisions, those land use decisions? You have to consider all stakeholders, and you have to level the playing field, because the challenge that we have right now as communities comes down to who has power, right? Now we could, very often when decisions like this are made, and the reason why there was a big push to privatize this golf course and develop it is it's a moneymaker. So what do developers do? They get into the pocket of your elected officials. They try to influence their decisions at your expense, right? And it's only when the people come together and speak with a united voice that you have a counterweight to that type of power that's being exerted on our government leaders. So I think when good land use planning is made, it's really important for your leaders to consider who has power and who's represented at the table and who isn't. And if you look at the history of my work, I have publications that took years to write, all about the importance of Main Street, the little guy. And I write about the difference between Main Street and Wall Street. I'm all for small businesses and good community-focused development and community-owned development, but more and more it's getting hard for our communities to compete with Wall Street institutions. And so we need good leaders who are capable of representing all people who vote them into office and not just the private developers. Thank you.
Well, the most important thing, in fact, I had the very same experience, a similar experience, I won't say the same, smaller scale. I lived in Allendale years ago, and there was a 5-acre piece of property that had been horses. I used to go and pet the horses, and I love that place. And, can you hear me? Oh, okay, I'm sorry. So anyway, my point just being is that the people who own that property decided that they were going to sell it. They'd owned it for 40 years, and they were going to sell it and turn it into apartments. And that became a huge neighborhood battle. So it is so important that the local people be able to dictate what becomes of that property. When this person, this gentleman, bought this golf course, he knew what the zoning was. He knew what the prior history was. He knew the risk he was taking. So I don't see any kind of sympathy whatsoever for the position he finds himself. And in fact, last year I met with one of the members of your board, and I said, you better tell everybody to get over there and play golf. And I know you did, because that helped to build the case, because it was so obvious to me last year where this was going, that it was a setup in order to then declare the project a total loss, and that something had to be done. Now, so I know that the numbers have been kept track of on the golf and the rounds and the membership and so on and so forth, which is going to be, I think, very important for you to have. But the most important thing in determining the zoning decisions is what the people who live nearby, who have invested in their property, what do they want? And that's why people in the area are always notified to come and to be able to testify. So that's the number one thing, and then to have whatever zoning request there is to be fitting in the footprint of the comprehensive plan of the county. However, I'm very concerned about the changes that they are trying to do in the comprehensive plan. So I don't know how much time I have left.
Just how much time? 20 seconds.
20 seconds, I'll talk about it later.
Thank you. So we're going to the public questions, and the first public question, because we have a rotating order here, is for candidate 2. That is for Mr. Ahern. The question is, and it's from Rick in Seminole. His question is as follows. Population density in Seminole is 1,089. 1,089, higher than the Florida average. 1,089% higher than the Florida average. 3,753% higher than the national average. Really? Why not keep green space for the animals that really need it? Add to this gentleman's question, the fact is, Pinellas County is, in fact, according to Pinellas County's own website, is the most densely populated county in the state of Florida. So, with that, Mr. Ahern, can you respond to the question?
Well, certainly, and again, knowing with the knowledge of that, why would we continue to look for places to build these high-rises or whatever? We need to take a breath, and especially in this circumstance, and protect this green space and any other recreational spaces. I guess the first thing I would do if I was elected is given the amount of all the green space we have available, and look at the way that we can protect it going forward, so that we don't continue to have to build things up. I mean, they're having to build highways up 8 and 9 feet in different parts of the state as they replace them, because the water's coming up and over the roads and making them no longer navigable. And we can't afford to do that here. We're already at sea level and at one of the highest densities. So again, looking at our green space, we need to protect as much of it as we can now, and so that the people, again, who have moved here with these expectations or have lived here with these expectations are respected. their rights to live here and prosper here are continue to be respected, and that we don't just get bowled over by new development at every turn. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is for Raymond, Senator Kedron. Okay. To make their case for changing the land use and rezoning of the Tides recreational open space, the Eisenhower developers are claiming that it was impossible to make any money as recreational open space, i.e. a golf course. And this is from Mr. Dan Hott over here. Mr. Dan Hott, as a former operations manager of the Tides, knows that the Tides had a 36% increase in rounds played before Eisenhower bought it. Eisenhower then significantly raised the rates. Eisenhower didn't bother to clean up after Irma and significantly cut back maintenance and green maintenance. As Pinellas County Commissioner, would you be able to see through such a ruse?
I absolutely would, because I absolutely have. And I'll give you an example of this. There is a really historic neighborhood in downtown St. Pete that is now protected from developers because I led the way on it. And I watched this happen in my own community. I owned a house in downtown St. Pete, and very quietly, developers started approaching the homeowners in my neighborhood because they wanted to buy the property. They said, oh, we have a new development coming in, and we need parking space, and we need to buy this property to make it into a lot. Well, because of my area of expertise, I knew that that was a ruse, because developers always want to buy land cheap and sell high. And what they were trying to do was hold on to that property and sell it because they knew that there was a construction boom happening very soon in downtown St. Pete. And so, as I have done throughout my life, I reached out to my neighbors, I organized them, we formed a neighborhood association. I started working with Tom Lally, the head of Kona, who's now working on my campaign, and we organized. And I guided them through the historic designation criteria that we would need to meet as a community in order to protect that neighborhood, because it was one of the most, now it's considered one of the most historic neighborhoods in all of downtown St. Pete. It's Lang Court. It's named after Al Lang, who was the first mayor the first significant mayor in St. Pete. People like Joe DiMaggio and Marilyn Monroe graced our neighborhood, and the architecture is very significant. And we were the first historically designated project in all of Pinellas County that met all of the historic criteria for designation. And when you can do stuff like that, then you protect property. And I'm here tonight to offer you guys solutions like that to help protect the Tides. I've been doing quite a bit of research, and I'm very excited about sharing that. So no, I would not buy into that ruse. I have not bought into that ruse. I have stood on the side of the people, and I always will. Thank you.
Now we'll go to the next question. And the purpose behind this is to maximize time and to try to get as many questions asked so we're not stuck on one topic, one issue. So, Barb, this question's for you. And this is from Sue, from Seminole. What issue is more important to you, preserving green space and Florida's natural beauty, or new development in homes to generate more money for the tax collector?
Well, actually, this is something I wanted to bring into the conversation, which is, of course, what is more important is to preserve the green space. I'm sorry, and I think I've had a couple of people, one of which is in this room tonight, who have said to me, what is the carrying capacity for Pinellas County? How many people can we actually carry and still have a quality of life? And I think we're already seeing the impact. And this county commission, I can tell you, over the last few years, have made complete changes in direction of a lot of their public policy. And many things are being changed. And it's not just a comprehensive plan. There have been many big changes, such as the combination of the MPO from the land planning and the MPO into one big organization that they went to the state legislature to get approved. We are the only county in the state of Florida that has our land planning and transportation now under one umbrella, and it's called Forward Pinellas. So that's just one example. There's many things that this active county commission, without term limits, is aggressively doing to retool our county. And some of the things that are very important to the county commission, this county commission and the county administration are pro-development, they are pro-increased density, they are pro-building up, they are pro-government subsidized housing, they are pro-public transportation. Even since 2012, PSTA's ridership has dropped 22% on their buses. Public transportation all over the country continues to drop because people turn towards things like Uber and Lyft. So we're seeing a big transition in transportation, and yet this county was willing to put us in a 10-year project and billions of dollars to build a public transit system that no one asked for. It was simply being hoisted upon us. They are pro-regionalism. How many people know that they are pro-regionalism in this county? I'm not running to be a regional commissioner. I'm running to be a county commissioner, and many of the current county commissioners are regional. That's all they talk. They talk about what's good for the region. And this oftentimes is not what's good for Pinellas County. So we have a lot of things that are going on that are counterproductive to what we're all concerned about, which is sewage spills. In fact, there was a big sewage spill yesterday. I don't know if it's even still going on in Largo, dumping into the intercoastal up here off of the Hardinian Rocks. So I don't know if anybody, I mean, it was 9,000 gallons an hour that was dumping, and I don't know if it's still going on. It was alerted to the state. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, so, Ms. Peters, question for you. This question comes from Andy Strickland from Seminole. The question is overlay. First of all, it's a compound question. Do you know what an overlay plan is? And what is your position on allowing Pinellas County to extend their overlay plan policy?
Okay, so I'm going to be embarrassed to say I don't know what the overlay plan is, but I do know what the FEMA maps are. I know what the overlay plan is for the FEMA maps, and with the FEMA maps, it would be absolutely ludicrous to allow buildings on that golf course, because the FEMA maps have most of that golf course underwater. And if they were going to build on that, they would have to build up that land 11 feet over they're not just going to build these houses up on stilts, they're going to have to do the landfill. And what does that do to those homes in the neighborhood? So it doesn't matter what their overlay map is. FEMA's going to drive most of everything that's happening in Pinellas County. So as far as the overlay, I'm not sure which overlay map you're talking about. If you're talking about the FEMA overlay maps, I'm very familiar with them, and the FEMA overlay maps have that rutted out. Nearly the entire golf course is underwater. But we need a watershed. We need Pinellas County has a problem with the stormwater. We have a problem with their sewers. I'm the one that demanded Fish and Wildlife do the investigation on St. Petersburg. I was incredibly disappointed that there were 89 felonies and 103 misdemeanor charges, and nobody got charged. Nobody was held accountable. I'm incredibly disappointed in that. I'm incredibly disappointed in how many cities have a consent decree. Largo, Gulfport, St. Pete Beach. I mean, I'm the one that brought all of this into light when this all started coming down, and I'm the one that passed the law that says they have to report to the public within 24 hours that there's a danger because people's lives were at risk and nobody knew. and people weren't transparent. And so I think when you look at just the environmental issues, and we certainly can't afford to have a bigger dead zone out in the Gulf of Mexico. I'm not sure what all is tied to that red tide. I'm grateful that it's in Manatee and Sarasota County and not in Pinellas County. But I'm disappointed that it's in the Gulf of Mexico, period. And so the environment is incredibly important to me. And I spent a lot of time writing legislation to protect our environment, to make sure that we didn't do fracking and we didn't do a whole lot of things. So I think this is the golf course is like your pressure point, but it's so much more than the golf course here. This is our quality of life. This is our environment. This is definitely our quality of life. I mean, this is our paradise that we've all chosen to move to. So as far as if it's the FEMA match you're referring to, and Andy, I'm sorry if I got that wrong. I'm really well aware of that. And what I have done, let me tell you what I have done. I've been in the legislature working, so I didn't get out knocking on doors as early as Barb did, but I have been knocking on doors personally in your neighborhood. And I have met with the folks in the neighborhood. And when I met and walked out on the golf course and took a look, I recommended who I think is the very best environmental lawyer in the state of Florida. And your group has talked to him. They've had conversations about who might be the best to represent them and how to handle that. I called J.J. Baruti as soon as he got involved, and he said he'd be willing to meet with you if he hasn't. I'm sure he will. But I think you have really bigger, serious issues in Pinellas County, especially along the coastline. And you guys are like the pinnacle to really drive it. This golf course is way more, thank you, it is way more than just the golf course and you. It's really about, it's our watershed, it's our sewers, it's our stormwater, it's our environment. We don't want that red tide. Thank you.
Thank you for answering. Okay, so that leads us into the second general question. But before I ask the question, I'm going to give a little preview here. Comprehensive plan. Speaking of comprehensive plan, that's the next question. Comprehensive plan. The Pinellas County Comprehensive Plan touches upon almost every facet of our quality of life. It addresses things like delivery of public service, land use, mobility, the environment, culture, and a host of other issues that matter to the citizens of Pinellas County, visitors, and businesses. A comprehensive plan is a document that defines the community's vision and establishes the associated goals, objectives, and policies that direct that decision-making process to help achieve that vision. The comprehensive plan must be dynamic as the community changes through development and redevelopment. The plan can also be amended to adapt to changing circumstances, opportunities, and conditions so that at all times it provides sound guidance to the decision makers. So, I don't know if you all heard, Pinellas County is going through a comprehensive plan discussion right now. That's right. What the county is going through right now will have a direct impact on what goes on out there. And so that leads me into the second question. And number 3, this begins with Amy. So the question is, Ms. Kedron, the county is currently in the process of rewriting the comprehensive plan. What is your stance on this topic, and how should current recreational open green spaces in our county be represented?
That's a very good question. Pinellas County is 97% built out. And it is imperative that we start making the value of our green spaces and our environment paramount. And to that end, I think it's very important for the county to go through another planning process and start working serious questions of sustainability into that plan. There are some serious challenges that Florida faces in the decades ahead. We are seeing more severe storms. Our coastal properties have to go through renourishment all the time. Everyone's really concerned about flood insurance. We need strong leaders at the government level who are going to ask the tough questions and be the bad guys sometimes and demand that we put together a sustainable plan for the future. And I want you guys to, I'm a university professor. I taught at USF St. Pete. I was the department head of a business program over at Ringling College. And I tell my students this: my job isn't to teach you how to think like me. My job is to teach you how to think critically. And I'm going to say the same thing to you guys tonight. You've got 4 candidates up here who want your vote. And they're going to talk the talk. Politicians are very, very good at promising you the moon when it's time to get your vote. But the best way to see what they're going to deliver on is by what they've already done and by what motivates them. And I can tell you that if I am on the commission, this is going to be my top priority because it always has been. If you Google my name, you will see articles published about my work in Business Week, in Reuters, and in other press over the past 15 years about the work I've done. I've worked with small businesses to help them green their practices. I've taught them how they could save money and respect the environment at the same time. The social enterprise that I started and was CEO of was instrumental in passing statewide legislation that changed the rules for corporations. Very often, corporate CEOs cannot put the interests of the environment ahead of the interests of their shareholders. We changed those rules. We changed those rules so that now when companies make decisions, they can designate in a special way that allows them to balance the needs of you, the community, the needs of you, the workers, and the needs of our environment against the needs of their shareholders. Because there are certain things that are more important than making a profit. Having land to pass on to your children and grandchildren are important. And on the term of walking the walk, I want you guys to go online and find an area environmental organization that you respect and look for their environmental scorecards. Because when people hold elected office, they are graded on their environmental merits. And I want you to see what the grades are of all the candidates up here. Thank you.
Okay, any candidates would like me to repeat the question? I'd be happy to do so. Okay, the county is currently in the process of rewriting the comprehensive plan. What is your stance on this topic, Ms. Haselden, and how should current recreational open green spaces be represented in our county?
Well, I think there's a lot to be concerned about as far as this county commission actively rewriting whole policy that we have operated on for many years with good public policy in many places. If you haven't gone on the, let's see here, it's called the Plan Pinellas, and watch the video, you should do that. There's a little girl who gives a almost nearly 4-minute talk about changing the comprehensive plan. And it's very darling to have a child deliver to us this kind of language. But part of what comes out of this is that they're changing the definition of the name of zones to add more flexibility to develop and densify, eliminating restrictions that tie their hands in doing it without your approval as voters. So without a referendum, they're able, just like we've seen in other districts, without voter approval, without going on a referendum, they're able to do a lot of policy change just by, through the board and through changing the comprehensive plan. They're redefining, and in this video she talks about, they're redefining the meaning of 1,000 current policies, 1,000 current policies, by removing language that in the video is said to be redundant or not necessary, but I take to mean that they do not agree with it. So this is the source of this is Plan Pinellas. It's called This Is Our Future Video. And you can go to the 1-minute 50-second mark and you'll see the little girl talking about how they're going to eliminate a lot of the language and change it. I think that's very concerning because just a few months ago we passed Penny for Pinellas in, and they changed it too. And a lot of people don't realize they changed Penny for Pinellas, but the yellow part up to the right is the 2007 version of Penny for Pinellas, and to the left is the one we just voted on. And I say we loosely because they scheduled it in an off-year election. Only 25% of the voters in Pinellas County actually voted on Penny for Pinellas. And in this penny for Pinellas, new things that have been now funded with $2 billion is land acquisition for affordable housing, government subsidized housing. I'm very concerned about that with regards to the topics. So they now have the ability to spend penny for Pinellas on that. Now, I'm going to quickly tell you that they also have the ability in the statute, which is FS 212-055, Section 2, and it states that the proceeds of the surtax can be used to acquire any interest in land for public recreation, conservation, or protection of natural resources, or to prevent or satisfy private property right claims resulting from limitations imposed by the designation of an area of critical state concern. I would suggest that the attorney look into being able to apply to the county to have penny for Pinellas buy this property from the
Thank you. What's that?
Make it contiguous. It's right next to my line.
Okay, thank you. All right, what's next? Ms. Peters, would you like me to repeat the question for you? Or?
Same question.
It's the same question.
So actually, a lot of what has been said already is actually very accurate. And when they do change the comprehensive plan, sometimes you do take out redundancies. And some things that weren't relevant before aren't relevant now. So you do have to clean it up. We had to do it in the legislature with statutes. But it is an opportunity when you open up to make changes that aren't scrupulous. So it does definitely have to be watched. And repeat the question again, so I don't want to just talk and not actually answer the question.
Well, first of all, we lowered the air in here, so it'll be a little cooler. All right, Ms. Peters, the county is currently in the process of rewriting the comprehensive plan. What is your stance on this topic, and how should current recreational open green spaces in our county be represented?
Okay. I think updating your comprehensive plan is a good thing. I think not leaving it on a shelf to collect dust is a good thing. But in Pinellas County, I think the environment should be first and foremost. Absolutely, it should be first and foremost. Now, and you know, it was brought up about who has the power. I forget who mentioned about who has the power. What I can tell you is the people that have the power are you. There's really great examples when Madera Beach was trying to change their plan and they didn't listen to the people had the power and they got them unelected. So you guys have a lot of power. Sometimes y'all think you don't, but you really do have a lot of power. So in my opinion, and based on my work, if you talk about what you've accomplished, I'm the one that changed the law on the 24-hour letting people know if you pollute. And I'm the one that went after St. Petersburg for polluting our environment, and I'm the one that filed the no fracking bill, because I don't think we should be doing that in our state, much less our county. So on the comprehensive plan, as far as green space, recreational space, I don't think we have enough, especially in South County. North County has Booker Creek. They got a whole lot of parks. South County does not. And you know, what else is going along with that? And you mentioned the Millennial Park. It's contiguous. We know we need the watershed. We know we need the drainage. We know we need the flood control. Pinellas Park is trying to do eminent domain and buy up land so they can do more flood control and put more ponds in, because we just don't have green space, and they have to, pay a premium because there's no green space when you have a natural occurring one. The other issue that comes up with you is there's sacred lands. I understand we've been told that there could be very sacred burial grounds on that property. So the idea of trying to develop on that is silly, I think. And if I'm not out of time, okay. So yeah, on the comprehensive plan, I think it's important. I think you always should update your comprehensive plan. You don't want to be stuck in 1950s planning in 2015. But that doesn't mean you wipe out everything and you just, build a concrete community. You don't. I absolutely don't believe in that. The environment's been a big important thing for me. I'm a paddleboarder. I'm on the water all the time. It's very important to me. It's important to my children and my grandchildren. So green space and the environment are real important to me. I've walked the talk. I've got a record to prove that it's real important to me. So I'm not just giving you lip service. It's really what I believe. And so I absolutely would fight for the green space and the environment, just like I have in the years past.
Mr. Ahern, you're up.
Thank you. And before I answer the question, because it is important to know someone's track record in solving problems and dealing with issues. And as stated prior to this, there was a flood insurance program with the Big Waters Act going away. Some of the premiums went through the roof here. Pinellas County is ground zero nationwide for the most policies in flood zones. And I saw the problem and filed a bill that created a private insurance market. Now we have 20 insurers, private insurers to compete with and to bring the price of your flood insurance down. When Tony Holloway, the chief of police in St. Petersburg, came to me and said, "Larry, we've got a problem with identity theft. If we catch somebody and they haven't used your identity yet, we can't prosecute. And they might have 200 of them." And I said, "Okay," and we fixed it. We closed that loophole. You can carry up to 5 in case a mom's got a bunch of people going to a swim meet or something. They've got the identities with them, but we closed that loophole. So when someone comes to me with a problem, I solve it. I find ways to solve it. And so it is important, and I've done that in many other circumstances. And let me say just one other thing about government and things like sewer and things. It's not sexy. Nobody talks about it. They talk about transportation. They talk about economic development. They talk about affordable housing. They don't want to talk about sewers. They're expensive to fix and to maintain, but that's a core function of government. And that shouldn't be happening here. And that's, again, the things that I look at when I look at being accountable to the people, holding government accountable for the money that they take from you and me every day and spend it on things that, after they've completed their mission, to take care of our roads and our sewers and our bridges. If there's something left over, they can spend it on some other projects that might have some merit as well. And then to answer the question directly about the comprehensive plan, let's put it in the plan. We'll protect this by putting that in the plan, that these golf courses and marinas and other green spaces that serve a specific need, they just need to be part of the comprehensive plan as it gets looked at by the government officials. And we'll vote on that and make sure that it's in the plan. You just need someone who's able to get that done. And that's where I think I excel in working with people, trying to convince them that these are good ideas to protect our environment and to make sure that we're really serving the citizens in the interest of the needs of the people who come to believe that their government officials are standing up for them. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So, let's see here. I think that leads us to our our second set of public questions. This goes to Ms. Hazel. This is from Marcia Dunnerstein. Communities are now required from Seminole. Communities are now required to include an element that addresses sea level rise in their comprehensive plans. What measures do you feel should be addressed in this element? I believe she's referring to the issue of sea level rise and how the comprehensive plan will address that concern.
Right. Well, I think that we see a lot about sea level rise throughout the Pinellas County documents and different planning organizations. There's a lot of discussion about sea level rise. There's a lot of our resources that are being spent on the possibility of sea level rise. And I'm on the record of saying that I'm more concerned right now about sewage in the bay. And I'm more concerned about sewage in the streets and more concerned about traffic. And while I am absolutely open to the topic of sea level rise, I think that, the sea level was rising behind my house yesterday. It was high tide. And so I think that there will be those of us that don't agree, but I think when it comes to priorities, the issues that we are encountering today, the problems that we actually have today, the problems that we have tomorrow, those are the things that with the limited resources, unless you want to pay a lot more taxes, that with the limited resources that we have, that we need to be focusing on solutions to the problems that are at hand, not the problems that are perhaps 50 or 100 years from now, if ever.
next question goes to Ms. Peters. This is from Mr. Steve Stratton, Seminole. Enormous amounts of fill will be needed. Enormous amounts of fill. Tell you what, Mr. Stratton, can you just say your question? No offense, but I can't read your writing.
You mentioned that the soil would have to be brought out 11 feet. Will the infrastructure be able to take care of transporting that much soil through these small streets, thousands of 20-ton trucks to do something? How could a developer even consider that this is viable to do here?
Okay, and I did mention fill, and let me make a disclaimer, I'm not a contractor, and so I don't know what all would be filled, and they have to leave so much wetland, they're going to have drainage ponds, right? They're going to have to do all this stuff. But based on the maps that I looked at, there would have to be some grading. You'd have to definitely do some grading and fill if they were to develop it. Now, in a perfect world, they're not going to develop this, right? In a perfect world, that's what you'll want. I believe the FEMA maps are going to really be the biggest barrier to them developing. Aside from you have sacred lands, you have so many barriers from the ability for them to develop this. But don't get complacent just because there's a lot of barriers, right? You don't ever want to get complacent. But I think you're right. I think they would have to level the grade. And then you're building these great big McMansions like they're doing on the water, on the beaches, and on the rest of the coastal. So your privacy of your neighbors is very limited now. But I think it's unrealistic because when you raise the grade, now you've got your neighbor now is flooding because if they haven't raised, so it's all going to flood back into your neighborhoods. You also have the problem that there's only one way in and out of that neighborhood, so you've got a traffic issue. I understand on Sunday mornings you have a traffic issue at church. And then so they're going to go back into those other streets to cut through. Now you're going to want speed bumps. And the truth is you really don't want speed bumps. I know they sound like a great idea, but they slow down your response time for emergency management. So if an ambulance is on your way and they have to go over those speed bumps, they tear up the equipment. So they have to go extremely slow. And if you're having a heart attack, you don't want them to come 30 seconds or 60 seconds longer, right? So there's a whole big issue about this going in there, not just the landfill, but access in and out. What's the traffic impact? It's going to be huge. The flooding, the stormwater is going to be huge. And I don't think they can make a pond big enough on top of the FEMA maps to accommodate really any development within there. So, after I met with your neighborhood, my feeling was very strongly that between the sacred lands, between the FEMA maps, between the access, and the stormwater drainage, that, it's just best to make it a park and attach it to the Millennial Park. And so that's really so what I say to you is don't get complacent. I mean, you guys have won already once, right? You've won before, but don't for a minute get complacent. Because you just never know. So be complacent. Those FEMA maps, Washington is trying to get them changed because Pinellas County is suffering the greatest in the whole country. Larry mentioned that. We have the highest record number of flood insurance payers in the country. And so there may be changes to that. So you have to be diligent and be sure. But based on every single house I knocked on, I haven't found anybody that wanted any, especially like multi-use. Anything more than single family was an absolute no. So I think you have such great power in numbers. And I truly believe you'll be successful, be diligent, never get complacent. Those sacred lands are a blessing to you. And the FEMA maps are a blessing to you. And I think that you've got a lot going for you. And I hope I answered that question.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Chairman, this next question is for you. It's from Roger Wilson. And Roger asks, what is your position about saving the water tower property? It used to be a water tower there, but now it's vacant land. What is your position on saving that piece of property as a green space park and having the Pinellas Purple Heart Park Memorial be established there?
Well, thank you for the question, Roger. And as an Air Force veteran and a supporter of all things military, I think it's a great idea. Again, we need these types of spaces, these green spaces, to preserve our quality of life. That's what makes things here so special. Just popping into Seminole City Park last week and just having having lunch at a picnic table there and just watching the kids feed the birds at the lake and doing, I mean, these are quality of life issues. And I guess if there was something, kind of I would leave you with, it's for me, it's just, this isn't about me. It's about you. It's about your future and the future of our children and our grandchildren here as we grow up and move on, so to speak. We want to leave a legacy that says, we made this a better place and didn't change just for change's sake. I've seen it over the 40 years that I've lived here, a lot of change, and not all of it good. And we're at that point, that tipping point, I think, that says, we have to make sure that we quit doing harm to our communities for the sake of economic development or transportation or affordable housing, whatever the thing might be that seems to be the hot button of politics of things today. Thank you.
Thank you. And Amy, schedule. Ironically, we had 2 people ask that same exact question. That just goes to show that this is an area of a lot of veterans. A lot of people serve their country, and Seminole does not have a war memorial, a veterans park honoring their sacrifice. So, this gentleman here would like an answer to the same question. What is your position regarding having the city of Seminole, that county-owned land where the water tower was? Would you be in support of having the county turn that into a Veterans Memorial Park or Purple Heart Park?
Yes, absolutely. And this is because one of the 5 main focus areas of my campaign is making sure that we're taking care of our veterans. Too often we have men and women working really hard to keep us safe around the world, coming home, and we don't keep them safe when they're back here. But what veterans need more than memorials is services. And I want to work really hard, like I have in the past, to make sure that we're taking care of the people who have the most needs in our community, and veterans are one of them. We need to focus on building good jobs for veterans. We need good small business owning opportunities for veterans. We need better services for veterans. And we need real care and support for that community. Monuments are good, but there are some critical services that veterans need as well. Now, getting back to the reason why we're all here tonight, there's some stuff that I want to share with you that's of really great use on this issue. Real leadership isn't about defining yourself in terms of what you're against. It's sharing a vision and talking about what you're for. You guys want to save the tides? Yes. You guys want to save the tides? Yes. All right. This is what we need to do. So the first thing is looking at the historic significance of the Tides Golf Course. The Tides was built by a very important builder. The Tides name has historic significance here. That might be cause for historic designation protection. You don't have to worry about the comprehensive plan and playing the rules by the developers' games if you guys set your own rules. I've done this before. I can help you do it again. Like I said, I saved one neighborhood, I'll save your neighborhood. Now, other things you should be considering is the natural significance of the tides. You've got endangered species that live on that land. And like the guy with the fish sign said, there's contiguous property. And that is a major concern for land preservation. Now, I know a lot of people in this room hate taxes, but the penny for Pinellas can save you. The county has a land preservation fund that you can tap into. The state has a land preservation grant fund that you can get up to $200,000 worth of grants to save this property. Now, another thing that you can do that is incredibly important that I have not heard mentioned yet is land trusts. It's not enough to keep the developers from developing the land. You have to protect the land. A land trust, if this land can be purchased and donated and put into a trust, no matter how that land changes hands in the future, it will always be protected. You guys have been fighting and fighting for years. I applaud you for still fighting, but I want to cure your battle fatigue, just like the veterans. And we need a permanent solution, and a land trust would do it for you. Here we go.
You know, we have one more section, but it's already 8 o'clock, and so we told everybody we'd cut out of here at 8 o'clock, so I don't know. You want to go through this last section, or you want to have closing statements? It's up to you guys. Closing statements, okay, very good. All right. Well, thank you very much for coming here this evening. You know, you mentioned having the county buy that land. Well, Mr. Hills has a mortgage on that property of $3.85 million. So, it's a lot of money for a park. All right. Closing statements. Number one. Excuse me. Let's start from this end here, Ms. Haselden. Please go first.
Thank you. Well, thank you for allowing us to come tonight. I think it's been very informative and very energetic. I just want to say that I've proven, I think, to the community what a fighter I am. And you're going to need a fighter on the county commission, not just for this issue, folks. There are so many issues that we need to have a strong fighter that is a citizen representative and not just another politician that's on that county commission. So we have plenty of those on there already. I am one to get term limits on the county commissioners. We voted on that in 1996. How many of you remember 8 is enough back in 1996? And we voted 8 years was enough for our elected officials at the county level, and they got out of it. And it's all but forgotten now, but by 73%, this entire county voted 8 years was enough for county commissioners and constitutional officers. Here we are, 22 years later, and it has never been put into our charter. So the term limits, I think, is really causing us a lot of problems in this county by not having a turning out, a natural turning out people. Some of these county commissioners have been on there for 18 and 19 years, and I can tell you, after running my company for 30 years, you get pretty darn good at what you're doing. After 18 or 19 years, you become a pro. So we have a lot of pro politicians in our county. They need to be termed out so that we can have good public policy rule the day, and the public interest rule the day, and not cronyism and favoritism and picking winners and losers, and it is going on. So I just say to you that I am on your side on this fight. I have been for over a year, and as far as the memorial is concerned, I signed that petition last year too. So I'm on your side with these issues, and I hope that you can support it. Thank you.
Again, I applaud all of you for coming together tonight for this important issue. When the community speaks with a united voice, we get real development that works for people. So thank you for everything that you've done. But also, you're also here tonight because you want leaders who can truly represent you. And the reason why I do everything that I do is because I was born in one of the most distressed cities in the country, the third poorest city in the country, and I dedicated my whole career to helping that city come back, and helping small business owners, and helping to protect the environment in that community, and build a healthy, local, green, and fair economy that works for everybody. And I'm very proud of that. With my credentials, I could have worked in the private sector and made a lot of money. That's not what motivates me. What motivates me is leaving communities better than I found them, and leaving people happier than I found them. That's where our happiness truly lies. And that's what you're going to get in a leader like me. Another thing you're going to get in a leader like me is solutions. Smart solutions that work. And somebody with a track record of success. who has consistently worked on behalf of the people and not sold out to the deep pockets. And I promise you, I will consistently do that as your public servant. Thank you.
Well, thank you all again for hosting us and hearing our answers and knowing that that I am against this further development and further increase of density here, and that my background has not been political. It's been 40 years in business. First with a family business on St. Pete Beach, and then here in town, I have a swimming pool company in St. Petersburg for over 25 years. And that's what I bring, is that business sense and common sense that I think is lacking in government. They lose focus because the money just shows up. They don't consider how hard you work for your money and the taxes that you pay so many times. And that's what I think is my strong suit, in looking at government as what can it do to serve the people and not get off track with all the different little pet projects that come up. I mean, I saw it in the state, at the state level. When I was elected in 2010, we were $4 billion short. It was in the midst of a depression. And in 2011, we were $2 billion short. So government can survive with a $64 billion budget. And this year, we passed an $88 billion budget. So it's got plenty of money, as does the county here. It's just how they spend it. That's the important part. Having someone who understands it and knows how to spend it for the core functions of government, to make sure the things that you can't do for yourselves, that the government takes care of those first before it spends the money on so many other projects, baseball stadium, remodeling, those types of things underline. How is that a priority? To me, it's not. So I look forward to hopefully your support. Serving you. I would term limit myself. I've lived under term limits. I'm term limited out of the house, and that's why I'm running. I think I can still have some service left in me, but I would only serve 8 years. That's it. I think that's 8 is enough. I think people spoke loudly and clearly on that. Thank you.
I want to thank you all for coming out, and I really want to thank you for your commitment and your passion to your community. I've heard loud and clear from knocking on doors. I've met with the community, and they've filled me in on what their issues, walked me around. And together we kind of strategized on some things and what you need to do. But what I can tell you when we say government is bad, not all government is bad. And sometimes I take exception. I had my own business for 28 years. I still have my own business. But when I became a mayor, and I was only a mayor for 3 years, right? I was a commissioner for 15 months, and then I became the mayor. And I was the mayor of a small city that is actually the most densely populated city in the state of Florida. Who'd think that South Pasadena is the most densely populated city in the state of Florida? It is, because it's only 0.6 of a square mile, and they had nearly 6,000 people in it. So there's more toilets flushing per capita than anywhere else in the state. But, that little city, when I became mayor, it was a recession, the worst recession we've had since the Great Depression. And when I became mayor, we had debt. And when I left, we were debt-free. And we survived that recession. So not all government is bad. So I do take exception. There are some of us that are very fiscally responsible, and we're responsible all the way around. And when you talk about track record, I've got that track record. But the other thing I'll say, and I'm really proud of my record in South Pasadena. So when St. Pete was doing the sewer overflows, it just makes me so angry. And because we didn't have a city manager, I had to be the city administrator. So I had to learn the day-to-day operations. So I actually understand and know how sewers work, right? And that's why I could call out the mayor that he wasn't being honest, because I actually had to do the job and know how they work, right? So St. Pete Beach sewer overflows, Treasure Island, Madeira Beach, Gulfport, St. Petersburg, Pinellas Park, but it was actually the county sewer stuff, not the Pinellas Park sewer stuff, that overflowed. So every single city, with the exception of Kansas City and South Pasadena, had sewer overflows. 80% of South Pasadena's border is intercoastal waterway. So they had the same storm surge, they had the same amount of rain, they had more toilets flushing per capita, and yet they didn't overflow sewers. And it's because of the management and the people that are knowledgeable to make sure that the job is done to ensure that we are good stewards to do what we're supposed to do. And that's what I did in South Pasadena. That's what I did in the state of Florida. And that's exactly what I'll do on the county commission. I've got a long track record, and I don't need to talk too much about it. Most of you know my passion, and most of my work is mental health and addiction. Environment is number 2. Mental health is just the biggest crisis in this country. And I'm really proud of what I've done at the state level. I've changed all the policies so we stop criminalizing so that people get access to care. But until we fix it at the local level, we're still going to have tragedy every single day. And too many people can't get access to care, and that's not okay either. And so I'm the one that's willing to talk about something nobody else wants to talk about. And I'm the one that's really, when the rubber hits the road, that's going to make it happen and get it done. So not only just for your Save the Tides and for the environment, but for mental health and addiction, which I think is the biggest crisis in this country. So thank you very much for all.
Thank you. Well, thank you very much. Let me say this before we all adjourn. I've got 2 things. First thing is thank you for your closing statements. With all due respect, my closing statement, our closing statement is no matter which of you gets elected, we will hold you accountable. Our treasurer would like to say a word.
Hey, the bad guys here, you heard all these wonderful people tell us we need great representation. We need legal counsel. The last time we went through this in 2003, it cost over $60,000 to get to the point where they withdrew their application. We're going to have to raise those kind of funds again, strictly for professionals. Everybody who's working on the Save the Tides works for free. Whatever money you guys can donate, we appreciate it. We should hopefully get some money from the community because this affects all of you, obviously, or you wouldn't be here. We do recognize that the people who actually live on the golf course carry the biggest brunt of this thing, and we were the largest contributors the last time, and we'll be the largest contributors again. But we need everybody's help in hiring competent legal counsel to fight Mr. Hills and his experts as well. So we need all your help. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Good evening.